The 1970s was a bold, wild decade full of groovy fashion, daring ideas, and some truly bizarre product flops. From exploding cars to edible shampoo, not everything was a hit. Curious, what went hilariously wrong? Let's rewind and uncover the strangest, most unforgettable failures the 70s left behind. Bell Picturephone. Back in the 1960s, Bell Telephone, what we now know as AT&T, was dreaming big about the future of communication. At the 1964 World's Fair, they unveiled a bold new idea, the Model 1 Picturephone. It was a prototype that let you see the person you were talking to, a concept that felt straight out of science fiction at the time. A few of these phones were actually used during the decade, giving people a glimpse of what video calling might one day look like. By 1970, Bell rolled out the first commercial version of the Picturephone. But here's the catch. It came with a jaw-dropping price tag. You had to shell out $160 a month, and that's not even counting the per-minute call fees. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $1,200 a month today, even if you never made a single call. On top of that, it was designed for one-on-one conversations only, so no group chats or conference calls. They did try again, releasing a Model 2 and even targeting businesses in the 80s. In 1992, they introduced the Videophone 2000 for home use, but none of these versions gained traction. Ironically, in 2019, two Model 2s fetched over $7,500 at auction. Finally, a win, just 50 years too late. Betamax. When Sony launched Betamax in 1975, it looked like they had a winner on their hands. This was one of the first home video formats, and it offered impressive picture resolution and superior sound, far better than anything people had seen before. In fact, the quality was so good that TV stations and production studios continued to use Betamax tapes for professional work well into the 2000s. But as great as the technology was, Sony made one crucial mistake. They kept it to themselves. Sony refused to license the Betamax format to other electronics companies. That meant fewer manufacturers made Betamax players, and fewer movie titles were released in that format. Just 1 year later, in 1976, JVC introduced the VHS tape. While the quality wasn't quite as sharp, JVC was more flexible. They licensed VHS to any company that wanted in. Suddenly, there were more players, more tapes, and more options for consumers. The result? Betamax's dominance disappeared almost overnight. Its share of the home video market plummeted from 100% in 1975 to just 10% by 1988. Though it limped along for a few more years, the writing was on the wall. Betamax had lost the format war, not because it wasn't better, but because it wasn't open. Gerber Singles. In 1974, Gerber, famous for feeding generations of babies, decided it was time to grow up, sort of. The company came up with what they thought was a groundbreaking idea: baby food for adults. They called it Gerber Singles, and the concept was aimed at young, single adults who lived alone and might not want to cook. The idea was convenience, pre-packaged, ready-to-eat meals in little glass jars, just like what babies ate. Except now, it was for grown-ups. There was just one problem. Nobody wanted it. The foods were pureed meats and vegetables, the same soft, mushy textures made for toothless infants, but now offered to adults who definitely had other meal options. Imagine opening a jar of ground beef paste or blended peas for dinner. Not exactly appetizing. People were confused, a little grossed out, and not interested in trading their TV dinners or sandwiches for something that looked like it belonged in a high chair. Gerber had completely misread the market. Adults didn't want convenience in that form. They wanted something with flavor, texture, and, well, dignity. Gerber Singles bombed hard and quickly disappeared from store shelves. DownyFlake toaster eggs. In 1972, DownyFlake, a company best known for its frozen breakfast foods, decided to take a shot at reinventing the morning meal. Riding on the success of quick and easy items like Pop-Tarts and toaster waffles, they introduced toaster eggs. The idea? A frozen egg patty that could be tossed into your toaster and ready to eat in minutes. Sounds convenient, right? Well, in theory, maybe. But in reality, these things looked more like hockey pucks than food. Round, thick, and oddly dense, they didn't exactly scream appetizing. While the concept of a fast, hot breakfast had merit, toaster eggs just didn't hit the mark in taste, texture, or appearance. People were already iffy about pre-cooked eggs to begin with, and running them through a toaster only made it weirder. Consumers weren't impressed, and sales tanked quickly. By 1975, just 3 years after their debut, toaster eggs were pulled from grocery shelves, vanishing almost as quickly as they appeared. It was a bold experiment, but one that proved breakfast innovation needed more than just convenience. It needed flavor and familiarity too. Polaroid Polavision. Polaroid was once the king of instant photography. Their cameras, like the SX70 and One Step, were everywhere in the 70s, snapping, developing, and printing photos right in your hand. Riding high on that success, Polaroid decided to take a bold leap into the world of home movies. In 1977, they introduced the Polavision system, hoping to take on Kodak, who had already locked down the market with their Super 8 film. The Polavision was pretty innovative for its time. It used a unique film cartridge that looked kind of like a mini video cassette. After filming, you could develop the footage within minutes using a special tabletop viewer. You could even remove the reel and play it on a standard Super 8 projector, which was a clever touch. But despite the cool tech, the system flopped. Why? Well, for starters, the image quality was weak. You had to film in super bright lighting, or the results looked dark and washed out. The colors were dull, and unlike Kodak's Super 8 cameras, the Polavision couldn't record sound at all. That was a big deal breaker. Sales never took off, and by 1979, Polaroid pulled the plug. These days, you can find Polavision gear on eBay for as little as $25. Proof that not every big idea sticks. Which of these 1970s product flops do you actually remember using or seeing in person? Sansui Quadraphonic sound. In the early 1970s, home audio was a big deal. Most people were still using basic two-speaker setups, but Sansui had a vision for something more immersive, something that could bring music alive from all directions. Enter the Sansui Quadraphonic sound system. Released in 1972, this 4-channel audio system promised to revolutionize home listening by delivering sound from the front, back, left, and right. It was a totally new experience compared to traditional stereo. Priced at $200 back then, about $1,200 in today's money, the system wasn't cheap, but it was groundbreaking. Sansui wasn't alone for long. Other audio companies jumped in, offering their own quadraphonic setups. Some even came with joystick controls, letting users steer the sound around the room for a fully custom listening experience. Big-name artists loved it. Aerosmith, Eric Clapton, the Eagles, and others released special albums mixed specifically for 4-channel playback. But while the technology was exciting, the average consumer just wasn't ready to upgrade their entire setup for 2 extra speakers. Adoption was slow, and by 1978, the quadraphonic dream quietly faded out. The music industry soon embraced digital recording instead. Today, working Sansui quadraphonic receivers still fetch around $200, a nostalgic piece of sound history. Clairol yogurt shampoo. In the late 1970s, Natural ingredients were all the rage. People wanted cleaner, healthier lifestyles, and that trend spilled over into the beauty aisle. Suddenly, products with honey, lemon, aloe, and herbal extracts were everywhere. So, Clairol decided to jump in with something a little creamier. In 1979, they launched yogurt shampoo, banking on the idea that if yogurt was healthy for your body, it must be great for your hair, too. The packaging leaned hard into the natural vibe, soft colors, images of yogurt, and text that made it sound more like a snack than a shampoo. And that's where things started to go sideways. Consumers were confused, really confused. Some people thought it was actual yogurt. Others didn't know whether to put it on their hair or in a bowl with fruit. Believe it or not, there were even reports of folks trying to eat it. Despite Clairol's good intentions, yogurt shampoo was a marketing misfire. It didn't help that the product itself wasn't particularly memorable in terms of performance. Within a short time, it was pulled from the shelves. These days, it's remembered more as a quirky footnote in shampoo history than a beauty breakthrough. Proof that sometimes being too natural can backfire, especially in a bottle. LaserDisc. Long before DVDs took over living rooms, there was the LaserDisc, a shiny, oversized disc that looked like a giant CD. First introduced in 1978, it was a bold step forward in home entertainment. It delivered sharper video and crisper sound than the bulky VHS tapes most people were using. At the time, it felt like the future of movie watching was finally here. But despite its technical advantages, LaserDisc came with some major drawbacks. First off, you couldn't record on it. That was a big deal back then because VHS tapes let you easily record shows off TV. LaserDiscs were strictly for playback, no flexibility. And they weren't cheap either. The players and the discs themselves cost a lot more than VHS, which made them hard to justify for the average consumer. The format hung around through the 80s and even tried to make a comeback in the 90s. Movie buffs loved them for the quality and the early access to directors' commentaries and special features. But once the DVD arrived, with better quality, lower prices, and recordable options, it was game over. World Football League. Back in 1974, a bold new challenger stepped onto the field to take on the NFL, the World Football League, or WFL for short. With big dreams and even bigger promises, the WFL aimed to create an international football empire that would rival, and maybe even replace, the National Football League. But as it turns out, ambition doesn't always equal success. The league kicked off with 13 teams scattered across the United States, including one all the way out in Honolulu, Hawaii. The name World Football League made it sound global, but in reality, it never expanded beyond US borders. Despite a flashy start, things unraveled quickly. Attendance was poor, money ran out, and many players were never paid on time. Even star athletes who had been lured away from the NFL with promises of big contracts ended up caught in a financial mess. The WFL barely completed its first full season in 1974. The second season in 1975 was cut short when the league folded midway through. In just under 2 years, the dream of world football dominance came crashing down. Swing bike. In 1975, a wild new ride hit the streets, the swing bike. Designed and patented by Ralph Belden just a year earlier, this wasn't your average bicycle. What made it stand out? It had 2 steering points, one in the front, like a regular bike, and a second one in the rear, just under the seat. That meant you could steer both wheels independently, making for some crazy curvy moves that no standard bike could pull off. The swing bike was all about flair, not function. It wasn't built for commuting or long-distance rides. This was a stunt bike, meant to catch eyes and turn heads. Riders could swerve in an S shape, or even keep one wheel on the sidewalk and the other in the street. pulling off tricks that looked like something out of a circus act. But while it looked cool, it wasn't exactly easy to control. The dual steering system made the bike unstable for beginners, and plenty of riders ended up wiping out. That unpredictability and the risk of injury meant it never caught on with a wide audience. After just a few years on the market, the swing bike was discontinued in 1978. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment yes to let us know you're still following. Sauna Hot Pants. Hot pants were already a sizzling trend in the 1970s, but someone had the bright idea to take things one step further and inflate them. Enter the Sauna Hot Pants, a bizarre blend of fashion and wishful thinking. These puffy, inflatable shorts promised a miracle. Melt away stubborn body fat without lifting a finger. No dieting, no exercise. Just sit back in your favorite recliner, maybe munch on some cookies, and let the magic happen. The theory was that by trapping heat and making you sweat, these pants would target problem areas like the hips, thighs, and belly. You'd wear them around the house while watching TV, and supposedly, you'd start shrinking in just a few days. It sounded too good to be true, and it absolutely was. While several companies jumped on the bandwagon and released their own versions, all of them failed miserably. People quickly realized that sweating a lot didn't equal actual fat loss, and wearing inflatable shorts around the house was neither comfortable nor effective. Plus, if you were a guy, you had to hope the only thing disappearing wasn't something you'd rather keep. Sauna Hot Pants are now a hilarious footnote in the long history of weird weight loss gimmicks, proof that there really are no shortcuts to getting in shape. Twist and tone. The 1970s had no shortage of wacky weight loss inventions, and one of the most memorable was the twist and tone. This gadget promised to help you shed pounds and tone your waistline, all while having fun. Unlike traditional workouts, this one didn't involve running, lifting, or sweating buckets. No, all you had to do was stand on it and twist your body from side to side. Easy, portable, and supposedly effective. The device looked suspiciously like a kitchen Lazy Susan, just a round disc that spun in place. You could use it at home, at the office, even during TV time. Just a few minutes a day, and your belly fat would start to melt. Or so they claimed. It was marketed as a miracle solution for people who hated real exercise. But here's the truth. It didn't work. Sure, it might get you moving a little, but it wasn't going to replace cardio or strength training anytime soon. Plus, people felt pretty silly using it, twisting their hips in the middle of the living room, like they were stuck in a dance routine gone wrong. Though versions of the twist and tone had been around since the 60s, none of them ever took off. Smell-o-vision revivals. The idea of smell-o-vision has always sounded like something out of a sci-fi movie. Why just watch a film when you can smell it too? While the original concept popped up in the 1960s, the 1970s saw a few quirky attempts to bring it back. The goal was to create a fully immersive movie experience by pumping scents into theaters or even homes to match what was happening on screen. Think popcorn during a concession stand scene or ocean breeze during a beach shot. Sounds fun, right? Not quite. In practice, the technology was clunky and unreliable. Scents often arrived too early, too late, or not at all. Worse, once the smells were released, they lingered, and not in a good way. Imagine sitting through a dramatic love scene while the room still smells like chili dogs from 2 scenes earlier. Audiences were more distracted than entertained, and theater owners weren't thrilled about having to install extra equipment that didn't even work well. Smell-o-vision revivals quietly fizzled out by the late 70s. It turned out people preferred watching stories unfold with their eyes and ears, not their noses. Today, it's mostly remembered as a strange footnote in the long, weird history of movie gimmicks. 8-track tape cleaning kits. Back in the 1970s, 8-track tapes were all the rage. Whether you were cruising in your car or jamming at home, chances are you had a pile of bulky tapes and a player to match. With all that use, companies saw a golden opportunity and rushed to sell 8-track cleaning kits, little packages filled with brushes, sponges, sprays, and promises of better sound quality and longer tape life. The pitch was simple: keep your tapes clean, and they'll last longer. But the reality? These kits rarely worked as advertised. Some of the brushes were too rough, the sprays too sticky, and the sponges often did more harm than good. In many cases, the cleaners left residue behind or scratched delicate parts of the tape, actually speeding up the wear instead of preventing it. It didn't take long for word to spread. People realized these kits were mostly gimmicks, and many just stopped using them altogether. By the late 70s and early 80s, compact cassettes had started to take over, and the demand for 8-track accessories quickly faded. Qube Interactive TV. In 1977, Warner Cable tried to revolutionize the way we watched television with a bold new system called Qube. It wasn't just about flipping through channels anymore. Qube aimed to make television interactive. Viewers could press buttons on a special remote to vote in live polls, choose how shows unfolded, or even influence what kind of music videos played next. It was basically a glimpse into the future, decades before streaming and smart TVs. The technology behind Qube was cutting edge for the time, but it came with a price, literally and figuratively. The system was expensive to install, glitchy to operate, and honestly, a bit confusing for the average family just looking to unwind in front of the TV. It launched in a few test markets, and while some people were fascinated by the possibilities, most found it too complicated or just didn't see the need for it. By the early 1980s, the excitement had fizzled out. The cost of maintaining the system and the lack of widespread adoption spelled the end for Qube. Still, it deserves credit for being one of the earliest attempts at interactive television, way ahead of its time, even if it never made it past the pilot stage of success. Do you think any of these failed products were ahead of their time? Why or why not? The Pet Rock. In 1975, one of the strangest fads in retail history took the world by surprise: the Pet Rock. Yes, it was exactly what it sounds like: a plain, smooth stone, packaged neatly in a cardboard box with air holes and a witty care manual. No feeding, no walking, no mess. It was the perfect pet, and somehow, people couldn't get enough of it. The genius behind the idea was advertising executive Gary Dahl, who turned a 1-cent rock into a $4 novelty sensation. It was meant to be a tongue-in-cheek joke about how demanding real pets were. And for a brief moment, the joke landed perfectly. Millions of pet rocks were sold in just a few months. It was cheap, quirky, and hilarious, especially as a gag gift. But like most one-joke wonders, the humor wore off fast. By early 1976, people realized they had literally bought a rock. No bells, no whistles, just a glorified paperweight. The craze collapsed almost overnight, and store shelves quickly cleared out the remaining stock. While it was a massive financial success for its creator, the Pet Rock became a symbol of how short-lived and absurd some trends can be. It's a classic example of 1970s fad culture: brilliant, bizarre, and gone in a blink. Clackers Toy Ban. In the early 1970s, clackers were everywhere. Kids couldn't get enough of them. The toy was simple: 2 heavy acrylic balls attached to either end of a string. The goal? Swing them up and down until they slam together above and below your hand in a rhythmic clacking motion. It was loud, flashy, and surprisingly tricky to master, which only made it more fun at first. But this innocent-looking toy came with a dangerous downside. Those balls weren't indestructible. When they clacked too hard or at the wrong angle, they could shatter like glass, sending sharp shards flying in all directions. Reports started rolling in. Kids with chipped teeth, cuts, and even eye injuries. What started as a playground craze quickly turned into a public safety nightmare. By the mid-1970s, the US government stepped in and banned clackers from being sold. Parents were relieved, and toy stores cleared their shelves. The clacker craze ended as quickly as it had begun. TV hat. In an era before smartphones and streaming, the TV hat tried to bring personal entertainment to the next level, one awkward step at a time. Launched in the late 1970s, this strange invention combined a baseball cap with a small pouch that held a mini television screen. The screen dangled right in front of your eyes, allowing you to watch your favorite shows, hands-free, anywhere you went. The concept sounded futuristic on paper. Imagine watching TV while lounging in the park, riding the bus, or even walking around. But in practice, it was anything but cool. The TV hat looked absurd, like something out of a low-budget sci-fi movie. You had to squint into a tiny screen mere inches from your face, which often led to eye strain, headaches, and a pretty uncomfortable viewing experience. And let's not forget the screen itself. By modern standards, it was low quality, grainy, and difficult to see in anything but perfect lighting. Add in the bulkiness of the hat and the clunky wires running down to a battery pack or portable tuner, and you've got a recipe for failure. The TV hat never gained any real popularity and quickly faded into obscurity. Today, it's remembered as one of those oddball inventions that tried to predict the future, but totally missed the mark. Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto rolled out in 1971, right as America was grappling with an oil crisis. Gas prices were soaring, and people were desperate for smaller, fuel-efficient cars. Ford saw an opportunity and jumped in with the Pinto, a compact car that was cheap, lightweight, and easy on gas. It was marketed as the perfect solution for cost-conscious drivers. But behind that affordable price tag was a deadly design flaw. The Pinto's gas tank was placed in a vulnerable spot at the rear of the car. In low-speed rear-end collisions, it had a disturbing tendency to rupture and explode. Internal Ford documents later revealed that the company knew about the danger, but made a cold calculation. It would cost less to pay legal settlements than to fix the issue. When the truth came out, the public was outraged. The Pinto quickly became a symbol of corporate negligence, and the scandal was a massive PR disaster for Ford. Lawsuits piled up, consumer trust plummeted, and the car that was supposed to be a savior of the 70s economy turned into one of the decade's most infamous failures. AMC Pacer. When the AMC Pacer hit the market in 1975, it was billed as the car of the future. With its huge curved windows and wide bubble-like body, it looked like nothing else on the road. AMC wanted to create a compact car that felt roomy on the inside, kind of like a small car with the space of a big one. People quickly nicknamed it the fishbowl on wheels, and the name stuck. But while the design was unique, it came with a lot of baggage. The Pacer was heavy, especially for a compact car, and that made it sluggish and inefficient. Not great during the 1970s fuel crisis. The rounded, futuristic shape also didn't sit well with everyone. Some thought it looked cool and ahead of its time, but many others just thought it looked weird. The interior space was impressive, and it did gather a small cult following, especially after appearing in the movie Wayne's World. But that wasn't enough to save it. The Pacer struggled with sales, performance issues, and a design that just didn't catch on with the masses. By 1980, production had stopped. Today, the AMC Pacer is remembered as a bold experiment in car design, a vehicle that dared to be different, but just didn't quite deliver. 20 bad product names you won't believe. Did you know that choosing the perfect product name can make or break a brand? Some become iconic, like Kleenex or Band-Aid. But what about the names that went terribly, hilariously wrong? Stick around, because we're diving into history's worst product names, the kind you'll have to hear to believe. Macho. When you hear the word macho, you probably think of larger-than-life figures like Randy the Macho Man Savage, or maybe that disco-era anthem Macho Man by the Village People. Back in the 1970s, macho wasn't just a word, it was a whole vibe. And riding that wave of rugged masculinity was a brand that took the name literally, macho. This wasn't just any men's grooming line. It was an experience packed into cologne, deodorant, and soap, all designed to make you smell as tough and confident as you felt. And let's talk about that bottle. It didn't just suggest manliness, it practically shouted it. With its bold design, it looked less like a cologne and more like something you'd keep in a toolbox. Hidden body. Back in the 1950s, a company called Tony was all about helping women achieve the perfect perm. Their products promised volume, bounce, and long-lasting curls. But one particular item in their lineup had a name that hasn't exactly aged well: hidden body. At the time, it probably made sense. The idea was that your hair had a secret boost of fullness and movement, effortlessly stylish and naturally voluminous. But fast forward to today, and hidden body sounds less like a beauty product and more like the title of a true crime documentary. You can't help but picture some suspicious character with a body stashed in the trunk of his car or buried in a remote field. It's a classic example of how a name that once seemed innocent can take on a whole new and unintentionally creepy meaning over time. AIDS. There was once a time when AIDS wasn't a word that carried a tragic and devastating meaning. In fact, in the 1970s and early 80s, it was the name of a diet candy. Yes, you heard that right. AIDS was marketed as a weight loss supplement designed to help curb cravings and reduce your appetite. Just pop one of these little treats, and supposedly, you'd feel satisfied enough to say no to extra food. At the time, the name probably seemed harmless, even clever. But when the AIDS epidemic struck in the 1980s, the brand was suddenly faced with a problem no marketing team could fix. Needless to say, AIDS diet candy didn't stick around much longer. Today, it's remembered as one of the most unfortunate product names of all time, proof that words can take on entirely new meanings, sometimes with tragic consequences. Meds. Ladies, when that time of the month rolls around, you need relief, comfort, and reliable protection. And at some point, a company thought the best way to market tampons was to name them meds. Yes, meds, because apparently nothing says sanitary protection like something that sounds like a prescription. These tampons weren't just any product, though. They were doctor-designed, promising superior comfort and hygiene. The brand even had a catchy little slogan, "Go Meds, Go Merrier," because apparently, the right tampon could make your period feel like a party. Of course, the problem with the name is obvious. Telling someone you need your meds doesn't exactly scream feminine care. It sounds more like you're reaching for anxiety pills. Go gay. If you go gay, you'll be discovered first. At least, that's what the makers of this vintage hairspray wanted you to believe. Designed to hold and beautify every type of hair, this product promised long-lasting style and a vibrant, polished look. The advertisements proudly featured models with perfectly coiffed hair, all looking positively thrilled. Because, of course, when you go gay, you look happy, right? Of course, back then, gay simply meant joyful, bright, and carefree, making it a perfectly reasonable branding choice at the time. But today, well, let's just say it would carry an entirely different meaning. While the name may not have stood the test of time, the confidence and happiness they were selling, that's something everyone can still appreciate, no matter what kind of hairspray you use. Do you remember using any of these oddly named products yourself, or hearing about them from older family members? Laxine. In 1927, the makers of Listerine decided that fresh breath shouldn't just come from mouthwash, it should come from cigarettes too. Enter Laxine, a brand of smokes infused with the same antiseptic oils found in Listerine. These cigarettes claim to kill 200 million germs in just 15 seconds, promising smokers not only a cleaner mouth, but also protection against colds. So if you wanted to stay healthy and fresh, lighting up a Laxine was apparently the way to go. Of course, today, this sounds absolutely ridiculous. The idea of smoking for better health is the kind of marketing that could only exist in a time when cigarette ads featured doctors in lab coats. The name Laxine itself is a bit unsettling too, sounding more like a laxative than something you'd want to inhale. Mini Poo. Have you ever woken up with greasy, oily hair but just couldn't find the time or energy to hop in the shower? We've all been there. But would you really trust a hair product called Mini Poo? Believe it or not, this oddly named miracle powder hit shelves promising fresh hair in minutes, no water needed. All you had to do was sprinkle some onto your scalp, gently work it through, then brush it out. Instantly, limp and oily locks turned fluffy and clean-looking again. While the name might raise eyebrows, and maybe a few giggles, Mini Poo genuinely offered a quick fix for women on the go. Still, you have to wonder who approved such a bizarre product name. It's proof that sometimes a little more brainstorming goes a long way. Scat. When it comes to fighting off pesky mosquitoes, you want something strong, reliable, and effective. But back in the day, someone thought the best way to market an insect repellent was to name it Scat. Yes, Scat. A word that, for most people, immediately brings to mind something you definitely don't want to rub all over your skin. But despite the unfortunate name, Scat was actually a pleasantly scented bug spray that promised to keep mosquitoes, gnats, and other annoying insects far away. Just a few swipes, and you were protected. The problem? Well, let's just say that convincing people to cover themselves in something called Scat probably wasn't the easiest sales pitch. It's a prime example of how a product can be great, but if the name makes people cringe, it's doomed from the start. Cholesterol hair. These days, most of us are trying to lower our cholesterol, not add more of it to our lives. But believe it or not, there was a time when cholesterol wasn't just something you worried about in your diet. It was something you put in your hair. Introducing Cholesterol Hair Conditioner, a product that promised to rescue damaged, over-processed hair. Whether your hair had been fried from bleach, tortured by perms, or teased into a tangled mess, this deep conditioning treatment claimed to restore softness and shine. And since it was backed by hairdressers, who could argue? Of course, the name probably made more than a few people pause. Cholesterol isn't exactly the first thing that comes to mind when you think of beauty and self-care. Church jewels. There was a time when American Standard introduced a product line with a name that probably caused a few double takes: church seats. Now, before you start picturing polished wooden pews in a place of worship, let's clear things up. These weren't seats for a church, but rather toilet seats. And if that wasn't odd enough, the company took things a step further by branding them as church jewels. The name alone sparks so many questions. What exactly were they trying to convey? And what denomination were these jewels supposed to represent? Despite the name, these toilet seats were actually high quality, coming in rich, glowing colors designed to match any bathroom decor. So, while you couldn't sit on them for Sunday service, they did offer a, let's say, elevated experience in a different kind of sacred space. Cracks. When you think of crackers today, Ritz probably springs right to mind. Those buttery golden snacks are iconic. But believe it or not, there was once a cracker with a very unfortunate name: Cracks. Yep, that's right. Cracks claimed proudly to be America's most copied cracker, and called itself the original educator. Back in the day, people actually went into grocery stores and casually asked where they could find the aisle with the cracks. Can you imagine doing that today? It sounds like a bad joke waiting to happen. Thankfully, we've become a bit wiser over the years, realizing just how awkward and problematic that name really was. And nowadays, if someone says they're addicted to cracks, we've definitely learned to be concerned. Which of these names made you laugh the most? Or did any of them leave you completely shocked? Prophylactic. There's nothing wrong with playing it safe, especially when it comes to oral hygiene. And about 100 years ago, if you wanted a quality toothbrush, you might have reached for a prophylactic. Yes, you heard that right. Prophylactic toothbrushes were once a real thing. Back then, the word simply meant preventative, precautionary, or protective, which, in theory, makes sense for a toothbrush designed to fight cavities and gum disease. But fast forward to modern times, and the word prophylactic has taken on a very different association, one that has nothing to do with brushing your teeth. Let's just say, if someone today said they had a prophylactic in their bathroom, dental hygiene probably wouldn't be the first thing that comes to mind. Have you ever come across a hilariously bad product name in real life? Share it with us. Unicon. If you were an active woman in the 1950s, then you might have been encouraged to try a French-style Unicon. Now, before your mind goes there, let's clear things up. This wasn't some bizarre fashion trend involving mythical creatures. Unicon was actually a line of breezy hairnets designed to keep your hairstyle perfectly in place while you were out and about. Whether you were gardening, playing tennis, or just enjoying a breezy day, this product promised to keep you looking neat and well-groomed. Of course, the name Unicon doesn't exactly scream elegance. In fact, it sounds more like a questionable medical device, or maybe something you'd find in a sci-fi novel. But despite the odd branding, these hairnets were all the rage. Because apparently, nothing said sophisticated and active like wrapping your head in a Unicon. Young people. Acne has been a frustrating struggle for teenagers for generations. From creams to cleansers, the market has always been flooded with products promising clear, blemish-free skin. And while washing your face twice a day is one of the best ways to keep breakouts at bay, sometimes you need a quick refresh on the go. That's where this particular product came in. Young people. Yes, you heard that right. If you couldn't get to a sink, you could simply wipe your face with Young People. The idea? A convenient way to keep oil and dirt under control throughout the day. The name? Well, let's just say it raised more than a few eyebrows, because who wouldn't want Young People all over their face, right? Talk about a name that could have used a little more market testing. Asthma cigarettes. If you were struggling with asthma, hay fever, bad breath, head colds, canker sores, throat infections, or bronchial irritation, then Dr. Batty had just the thing for you. Asthma cigarettes. Yes, you read that right. At one time, smoking was actually marketed as a health treatment. These special cigarettes promised temporary relief from all sorts of respiratory issues, and the best part? They were doctor-approved. Of course, looking back, the idea of puffing away on a cigarette to help with asthma seems absolutely ridiculous. And if that wasn't alarming enough, there was just one safety warning. These weren't recommended for children under 6. That's right, under 6. Apparently, kids over that age were free to take a few drags for their congestion. It's a shocking reminder of just how much medical advice and product marketing has changed over the years. Satanic. After 134 years of experience, this company had one goal: to help you feel your absolute best. And if you were struggling with a health problem, they had the perfect solution: Satanic. Yes, that was actually the name of this so-called wonder remedy. Feeling sluggish? Under the weather? Just not yourself? Satanic promised to go right to the source of your troubles and give it hell. Whether you had aches, pains, or just needed a boost, this product claimed to bring relief and make you feel sunny and great. Now, in theory, that all sounds promising. But let's be honest, who thought naming a health product satanic was a good idea? Nothing screams trustworthy medicine like something that sounds like it was brewed in the depths of hell. It's safe to say that no matter how effective it might have been, this is one name that didn't age well. Bone phone. In the 1980s, an engineer introduced a gadget with a name that definitely raised some eyebrows: the bone phone. Now, before your mind goes there, let's clear things up. This wasn't a hotline, and it certainly wasn't something you'd find in a different kind of store. No, the bone phone was actually an innovative wearable speaker system. Designed to drape around your shoulders, this 15-ounce device used bone conduction technology to deliver sound not just through its speakers, but directly through your neck bones, sending vibrations all the way up to your inner ear. The idea was pretty ahead of its time. Instead of wearing bulky headphones, users could experience music in a whole new way, feeling the sound as much as hearing it. And if the marketing wasn't already suggestive enough, the product even guaranteed satisfaction through its vibrations. Yeah, safe to say, the bone phone probably didn't get the branding approval it needed before hitting shelves. C-molds. Back in the 1950s, if a woman was sporting C-molds, she was considered seaworthy, at least according to the marketing for this oddly named swimsuit line from Flexi's. Designed to sculpt and shape a woman's figure, these swimsuits promised a perfect fit for days spent by the water. But let's be real. C-mold sounds less like flattering beachwear and more like something you'd scrape off the side of a boat. Despite the unfortunate name, the brand wanted women to experience the magic of C-molds, which, in hindsight, sounds more like a warning than an invitation. The suits themselves may have been stylish for the time, but C-molds just isn't the kind of thing you want to associate with a day at the beach. Some product names sink, and this one definitely went overboard. Wonder Sauna Hot Pants. Struggling to lose weight? Don't worry. There was once a solution that promised to melt the pounds away without hitting the gym. Introducing Wonder Sauna Hot Pants, a pair of inflatable heat-trapping pants designed to help you sweat off extra inches. These futuristic-looking sauna suits for your legs claimed to slenderize exactly where you wanted, giving you that toned, slim look without all the effort. Of course, if you were a guy wearing these hot pants, you probably had some concerns, because nothing screams masculine confidence like stepping into a pair of oversized plastic sweat balloons. While the idea of targeted weight loss through sweating was popular at the time, let's be honest, wearing what looked like inflatable pool floaties for your thighs wasn't exactly the most stylish way to slim down. Sus pants. The 1950s were full of interesting fashion innovations, and one of the more unfortunately named ones was Sus pants. Now, today, that name sounds a little suspicious, like something you'd find in a sketchy corner of the internet. But back then, these were actually considered a must-have undergarment. Sus pants were designed to help women hold up their stockings without the hassle of a full garter belt. They were practical, supportive, and apparently worked for all body types. And speaking of body types, the way they described them was just as eyebrow-raising. Women were encouraged to find their perfect fit based on categories like Toothpick Tilly for the slender ladies, Model Form Millie for that classic hourglass figure, and Buxom Billy for the curvier gals. Let's just say marketing in the 50s had its own unique charm. Horse exercise. Everyone knows that exercise is important, but sometimes it's hard to find the motivation to get out and do it. Well, in the past, there was a solution for that, introducing the horse exercise machine. Now, before you start picturing an actual horse trotting around your living room, let's clarify. This was an exercise device designed to simulate horseback riding, promising to improve circulation, cure obesity, hysteria, and even gout. Yes, because apparently bouncing up and down on this contraption was the miracle fix for just about everything. And if you were skeptical, don't be. The Princess of Wales personally ordered one, which clearly meant it had to work. Advertisements claimed that after just one ride, you'd feel different. And honestly, considering the design of old exercise machines, you probably would. Whether that difference was relief or regret is another story entirely. Biff chopped beef. If you're a fan of beef, then Biff Wilson's Biff chopped beef might have seemed like a dream come true. This canned meat promised to be tender, flavorful, and a hit with the whole family. People couldn't stop talking about how easily it slipped out of the can, which, depending on how you feel about processed meat, was either a selling point or a reason to run the other way. But let's be honest, Biff chopped beef sounds more like a tongue twister than a tasty dinner option. And something about the phrase "slips out of the can" just doesn't sit right. Sure, it was probably convenient, but did it really need to sound that unsettling? Maybe back then, people weren't too picky about their meat products. But today, this is one name that might not make the cut. Soilax. With a name like Soilax, you'd probably assume it had something to do with, well, an unfortunate bathroom emergency. It sounds like the aftermath of a bad decision involving laxatives. But surprisingly, Soilax wasn't a digestive aid. It was actually a household cleaner. Packed with germisol, it promised to eliminate tough household germs and leave your home sparkling clean. Of course, given the name, you can't help but picture a totally different kind of cleanup scenario. And honestly, if you did have an accident after taking a laxative, Soilax might have come in handy for that too. It's a classic case of good product, bad branding. Because let's be real, no one wants to clean their kitchen with something that reminds them of an unfortunate trip to the bathroom. Mom. Moms are known for keeping their kids out of trouble, and apparently out of stinky situations too. That must have been the logic behind the creators of Mom, a deodorant with a name that's both oddly comforting and just a little unsettling. The idea was that Mom was always there for you, quick, gentle, and long-lasting, just like a mother's care. With Mom by your side, you'd stay fresh and odor-free all day long. But let's be honest, the name makes for some unintentionally hilarious sentences. Don't forget to put on Mom before you leave the house. Or, I always bring Mom with me wherever I go. It's a marketing choice that probably made sense at the time, but sounds downright bizarre today. After all, there are some things you just don't want to associate with your mother. Young and free. Young and free sounded like a carefree, youthful dream. At least that's what the makers of this line of toiletries intended. Marketed for twins and young teens, this collection had everything a growing girl needed, from shampoo to deodorant, all designed to keep skin soft, fresh, and delicate hair looking its best. The idea was that these products would gently carry you through your awkward years, right up until the moment you magically transformed into a beautiful woman. The name itself had an innocent enough meaning at the time, but looking back, it does feel a little off. Something about Young and Free as a brand aimed at tweens just doesn't sit quite right today. But hey, at least it wasn't called Mini Poo or Sus Pants, because when it comes to bad product names, there are definitely worse offenders. Which country are you from? Comment below and let us know. Big Yank. In the 1960s, if you were a kid, you probably knew that your dad loved a Big Yank. Now, before you let your imagination run wild, let's clarify. Big Yank was actually a brand of slacks. Yes, that's right, men's trousers. Sold in department stores, these pants were advertised as being incredibly comfortable, durable, and perfect for hardworking dads everywhere. Of course, looking back, it's hard not to wonder how no one in the marketing department thought twice about the name. Even for the time, Big Yank sounds more like an unfortunate punchline than a clothing brand. But hey, they were apparently wonderfully soft, which, given the name, just adds another level of unintentional hilarity. How happy can a chubby girl be? Well, according to this 1950s fashion line, Chubette, she'd be thrilled. Designed specifically for girls sizes 6 to 16, this clothing brand promised to help young girls look slimmer, more stylish, and confident. Advertisements encouraged customers to discover the magic and embrace those extra pounds with joy, because apparently, nothing says self-esteem like reminding kids they need special clothes for their body type. While the intentions may have been good, the branding, not so much. Imagine telling your child they'd look so much better in Qube. Talk about a confidence booster. Today, the idea of marketing clothing to kids with a name that directly calls out their size seems unthinkable. But back then, it was just another day in the world of fashion. Vibrafinger. Good oral health is important, and if you wanted to improve circulation and stimulate your gums, then the Vibrafinger was the tool for the job. Designed as a gum massager, this device promised to boost circulation and keep your gums healthy with a little extra stimulation. Of course, the name Vibrafinger might raise some eyebrows today. While it was intended purely for dental care, let's just say it sounds like it could have had an entirely different purpose. Marketing this product must have been an interesting challenge, because nothing screams, "Trust me, it's for your mouth," like the words Vibrafinger on the box. But hey, if it did help with gum health, maybe it was worth the awkward glances at the checkout counter. Big Tits Potato Chips. Back in the 1930s in North Carolina, you could grab a bag of Big Tits potato chips for just 10 cents. Now, before you do a double take, let's clear things up. This wasn't some bizarre marketing gimmick. Big Tits was actually the nickname of Titus Tart, one of the owners of the Tart Chestnut Company. And to make things even better, the image on the bag was none other than Mr. Tart himself. While the name might have seemed perfectly innocent at the time, it's safe to say that in today's world, Big Tits chips would turn a few heads, and not for their flavor. It's a classic case of a name that made perfect sense back then, but definitely wouldn't fly today. Climax Plug. Most people can agree, there's nothing quite like a great climax. And back in the early 20th century, if you were looking for something truly satisfying, you might have reached for a Climax Plug. Now, before you let your imagination run wild, let's clarify. Climax Plug was actually a chewing tobacco brand, not, well, anything else. Marketed as a rich, flavorful tobacco that was sure to hit the spot, it was advertised as the perfect way to unwind and enjoy a moment of satisfaction. The name was clearly meant to emphasize premium quality and peak enjoyment. But let's be honest, today, it lands very differently. If someone asked you if you wanted a Climax Plug, you'd probably assume they weren't talking about tobacco. Safe to say, this is one brand name that definitely wouldn't make it past modern marketing standards. Most of these 70s flops are long gone, tossed out, forgotten, or collecting dust in someone's attic. But who knows? That oddball item might just be worth something today. Did we miss any memorable failures? Drop them in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching and taking this nostalgic trip back with us.